Hey everybody, my name is Ken. Welcome to the Yoger use case series. In this tutorial video, we are going to cover everything that you need to know about performing assessments with athletes or clients in person. Yoger is a movement analysis platform that allows you to gather human movement data from just videos so you can use it on mobile devices with athletes at any time or any place. By the end of this video, you'll be able to create athlete profiles, perform movement screenings with them in person, make assessment flows, go over your assessment results with clients, and generate and save reports. Stick around to the end of the video. We have a few shortcuts for you. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's get yogging. All right, let's get started. So first up, let's open the app. Once that's open, it's going to take us to the Analyze view. So this view is sort of the gateway to uploading old videos, recording new videos, or performing assessments. At the top, you'll notice this little gray section that'll have whoever's signed in's profile. So it'll have your name, your email, your profile picture if you have one. If we want to create a new athlete profile, we can do that by pressing this section up here. And once we press that button, it'll bring up a list of all our current athletes. So if it's somebody we are working with and we want to select their profile to do an assessment with, we can do that. Or if we want to add a new athlete profile, we'll press this plus button in the top right. That'll just bring up some basic information that we can fill out. So for example, just make a new profile here. We'll call him new athlete. And basically, if you're working only with them in person, the email is not too important, but if you want to send reports to them, you do want to put their correct email in there. So I'll just answer this information in here. And then at the bottom, there's a checkbox that says invite this athlete to access their account on Yoger. If you're working with somebody mostly in person and you don't need them doing assessments at home or, uploading videos from across the world, you can leave that box unchecked. That's really if you're working with somebody mostly virtual and you need them to access the Yoger app to send you videos or assessments. So for this tutorial, we're going to leave this unchecked. We're working with them in person. They just need a local profile. So once I add that athlete, their profile is created, and we'll see them pop up at the bottom of our athlete list, and I'm going to go ahead and select that new athlete. So now that I have them selected, we'll go ahead and do our first assessment by clicking this assessment button down here. And right away, you'll notice that brings us to this Choose Assessment view. So we have a bunch of different types of assessments, including functional movements. We have performance-based assessments, and then single limb range of motion. If we want to do more than one assessment at a time, we can connect them together, and we call those assessment flows. So we have some pre-made ones, including all our neck range of motion assessments, shoulder assessments, but we also give you the ability to create custom assessment flows. So I'll show you how to do that. Say, for example, when we're working with a new client, we want to create an assessment flow that has them do maybe a functional movement and just range of motion assessments. So we will select Create Flow at the top right. We'll go ahead and put an overhead squat assessment in there, and then we'll just add a few neck assessments here. So once I have my order of assessments that I want in the flow, I can go ahead and click Save in the top right. It'll bring up a little page to save our assessment flow. Here we can name it. Maybe this is for new athletes, and we'll name this one Onboarding. Whoever's creating the assessment, it'll label that, the date created, and then it'll also give you the option to add a description to the assessment flow. This will show up later if you're generating reports, so it might be a good idea to take a little bit of time and write a good description. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'll just be a little brief, but onboarding new athletes. You also have the option to change the image associated with the flow, just to, make it kind of blend in with all the other assessments in the page. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and now I got the indicator that our assessment flow is saved, and we can see that new flow up top. Great. So once we have our assessment flow created, we can go ahead and choose that to perform with our athlete. So once we select that assessment flow, we'll get taken to this overview. We can see which assessments are in this flow, and then we can also look at instructions for each of those assessments if we're unfamiliar with it. So for example, I'll click the overhead squat instructions, and it'll bring this up. So we do have a few recommended things for assessments to get the best results. One is when you set up the camera, we do suggest you set it up about chest height. You can set it on a table or an iPad stand or an iPhone stand. Everything works as long as it's about chest height. We do recommend standing about 8 to 10 feet back when you're performing the assessment, or to get a better idea, simply Have some space above your head, below your feet, and in the view. Make sure nothing's cut off while you're performing the assessment. Once the athlete steps into the frame after you press the green button, the assessment will calibrate. There will be a little bar going around the box that'll say how calibrated you are, and then once it's calibrated, it'll move into the first movement. So typically it's broken down into 3 different sides. It'll gather data from the right side, 1 rep from the front side, and then 1 front from the left side. This is true for most of our assessments, but not every single one, so make sure you are familiar with it before you go through the assessment. And then once your client is done doing the assessment or the assessment flow, a results page is going to pop up with an overall score. So for example, with this assessment flow, we're going to get an overall score, and that's an aggregate or average of all of the assessments in that flow. With each of these, we can actually dig into the specific assessments. So for example, if I click on the overhead squat, we can see the overhead squat score and then different subcomponents that make up that score. So for example, with this one, we see their stability, their squat depth, shoulder mobility, and these all make up the score of this specific assessment. We can even get more details within these subcomponents. So for example, if I click on squat depth, it'll show us left versus right side. It'll actually give us more information on what this movement is. And we can bring up a rubric that'll explain how we got to the score we got to. So once we get our overall assessment flow score, there will be a little pop-up that'll prompt us to save this to our athlete's profile. If you want to change the athlete profile here, for example, if we did not do that before we ran the assessment, this is a good opportunity to do that where you can select to a different athlete, but you're gonna wanna make sure that you save this flow or this assessment. Once we're set with our overall score, we can go through it with clients, or we can generate reports and send them home with clients. So to generate a report, I'm just gonna push this report button in the top right corner. And what that's going to do is that's automatically going to generate a report with all that information that's in the app. But this is just a really easy way to get it into a nice PDF report that you can send home with clients. So it's going to go through this assessment flow. You'll see the overall score, the different assessments in the flow. And then for each assessment, it'll give a summary, as well as go into the different data with those subcomponents, and then also give images of the assessment themselves. So with this report, we can save it to their profile. We can share it pretty easily. We can email it. We can text it. We can do a lot of things with it. But again, the idea is just to get something in your client's hands. You can put your own branding on this. It'll have your client's name, something that's really nice for your clients to take home. So that's pretty much everything you know about doing assessments with clients, making their profiles, creating reports, looking at their results. There are a few shortcuts that we can use to speed up through the assessments, and I'll show you how to do that. So if we go to the Choose Assessment tab, there's a Settings button in the top right corner. When we pull up the settings button, this will bring a few default settings. So the default is there will be voice commands that walk the clients through the assessments. You can actually turn those off. That'll speed up your assessments a lot. We suggest you do this if you're pretty familiar with how the assessments are run and you're there in person helping them move through them. Additionally, if you want your reports to look a little bit different, you have options to do that here too. The default adds in everything into the reports, including the summaries, the component summaries, and the images. So if you want just an overall, here's how you did on your assessment, you can turn off all these settings and leave your clients with just a summary. Sometimes simplicity is better and they just want to know how they did on each part of these. So there's a few shortcuts to speed these up. This is the process of doing assessments in person with clients, everything from, again, creating profiles, doing the assessments, going over your results with them. Great. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about performing movement screenings with athletes in person. So you should have learned how to create athlete profiles, go through the movement screenings with the athletes, go over the results, and create save reports and send them home with your clients for something that they love. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm Ken. Keep moving, keep improving with Yogger.